This meeting of the Summit County Board of Elections is called to order. The first item on the agenda is ballot adjudication. Good morning.
Good morning. So before you are two ballots from this general elections absentee mail run that require your approval for count.
Okay.
You'll see the first ballot is an issue with voter intent, but it appears that the voter's mark is consistent.
Can you get a little closer to the mic?
Oh, sure. Appears that there's an issue with voter intent. A race did not get counted because of the way that the voter filled out the oval, but it is consistent with the other ones. Your second ballot, there was a slice partially through the ballot, interrupting a vote choice. And we just need your decisions on how these two ballots were adjudicated.
Let's take the first one first. Is it the Akron Municipal Court race where the...
This would be for member of council, first race.
Oh, yes, yes, okay, all right, I see. And it's highlighted, okay. So the marks vary in how close to or far from the center of the bubble they are. There's one that's almost exactly in the center. There are three that are in the bubble, but the marks are all smaller than the bubble. There are three that are within the bubble, but off center. There's one that's kind of half in the bubble and half out of the bubble. Which one is that? That's the Akron Municipal Court. It's a small mark, and it's on the line. But that was the machine count that, right? Or do we not know?
So the Clear Ballot software marked this as a non-vote, but
which as a non-vote?
The vote for Akron Ward 1 Council.
Right. Okay.
But it was manually adjudicated. It was manually adjudicated as a vote.
I was asking about Akron Municipal Court.
That vote was automatically voted by the system as a vote.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Right. And then at least partly within the oval, right? And then the one for the Akron Ward 1 race is slightly within the oval, but almost entirely outside the oval. I think that's an example of false precision. So the system counted the Akron Ward 1 as a non-vote.
Correct.
Okay. Well, we've been going with what the system says. system is, I mean, as a human, I would interpret this, I think this person intended to vote for Wilson, but that the machine thought otherwise. And I don't think we have a reason to depart from what the machine said. Right? So,
If I may?
yeah.
I have a question. Is this an absentee ballot by mail?
Yes, this is an absentee mail ballot.
How did it come to our attention? Are we scanning ballots already?
Yeah.
So, yes, we started round one of scanning last Friday.
Okay, so, and the machine, the scanner, what triggered it to go into a manual override to the machine's to the counter's interpretation?
So a Democrat and a Republican were reviewing the undervotes for the contest. And that's part of the election official manual's duties. And this came up as an opportunity to make the manual override. And now we're bringing it to your attention for the ultimate decision.
So the directive on scanning absentee ballots is to examine every undervote?
I'm sorry, overvotes and blank ballots. So no, this was just looking at undervotes.
Well, that doesn't answer my, does the directive tell us as a board to visually examine every undervote for an absentee ballot by
No,
mail?
No, it does not. It's overvotes and blank ballots. I just got confused there. Overvotes and blank ballots.
So what triggered this to be looked at?
Looking at the undervotes, looking at all of the ballots that were come across our screen.
But why would we do that? I mean, it's one thing to see something while you're doing something else. Does the directive tell us to examine every overvote
Yes,
that comes through? So we're examining the overvotes. We happen to see,
we had the time to do it this election. Just going through everything, sweeping the dashboard, using all the tools that we had. We just wanted to bring this to your attention for an opportunity to look at.
so this has not been adjudicated.
Not yet, without your approval.
Right. Okay.
The bipartisan team made a recommendation to count, is that my understanding?
Yes, they're making a recommendation to the board.
To count that as a vote
Correct.
in the Ward 1 race,
Yes.
as they believe they can determine the intent of the voter based on the mark?
Yes.
Well, I disagree with that. And I agree with what the chairman said, which is our past practice is when the machine sees it as an undervote, this really shouldn't even be in front of us as a converse. And I don't understand why we were even having staff take a look at this or even flag it.
Yeah, that's where I got lost on this.
There wasn't another reason to be looking at this. The only reason it was looked at was because it was an undervote, is that correct?
We were just sweeping through the dashboard, looking at all of the ballots. We had the time to do so. It was a small run.
And when the team brought it to our attention, Kevin and I both felt that it was close enough that it warranted further review by the board. They gave a recommendation based on how they felt the other pen marks lined up, but that is not a final determination. I think that all four of us decided to err on the side of caution and allow you to review it.
But then we're not being consistent from vote to vote, from election to election. In a busy, season, we wouldn't have that luxury of having extra time to just look for ghosts or whatever. And this would never have become an issue. I mean, we bought this expensive equipment to do the job that we felt it would be better done by an intelligent system. And now we're looking at something that just by happenstance, and because we had time on our hands, we found. And I lean much more toward consistency, that every election we do things the same, than to discuss whether or not this person was always flirting with the margin of the oval.
I don't think there's any harm here, as long as, in the end, we, the board, are being consistent. So, I mean, I think it's okay that we were presented with this. We shouldn't, you know, the answer that we're about to give is the same kind of answer that we would have given in the past, and we need to make sure that we're consistent.
Well,
Yeah, I think,
and I agree with you, Bill, you know, on that, but I mean, we have a process that's followed, and I don't think the process is to look for witches because you have time on your hands. That's what's troubling me a little bit.
well.
I mean, we're more than likely gonna say this ain't a vote, okay? And I think we'll all probably agree on that. But I think it's more of a policy thing to say, hey, you know, ladies and gentlemen, as you're doing this job, do the job and always do it the same way. Don't look for things that we otherwise, there's probably a whole bunch of those in a real busy election that occurred. And we've already made the policy decision that we're going to defer to the machine.
Right, but I mean, we do occasionally get presented with ballots where, in the end, what we say is, just do what the machine said, but we discuss it. You know, I think, based on this discussion, the staff will conclude that it doesn't make sense to look for undervotes. But I don't think the fact that we were presented with this, you know, is in itself a problem. I think we're going to make the decision that the machine determination is what should be followed, and that will reinforce the message that, you know, we're not looking to see whether undervotes were incorrectly tabulated by the system.
Well,
And we
you
move
and
on.
I at least agree on that. I want to send the message that we're not looking for things that we're not supposed to be looking for. So I think you and
I think
I would say
you
it's
and I
like-
are 90%.
I think the message is clear.
I would say it's slightly different, though. I don't think we should be looking for anything that the directive and the elections officials manual don't instruct us to look for or not look for, regardless of time and volume. If there's a huge volume and the EOM says look for something, we take the time to look for it.
Right.
So volume can't, high or low, can't be a driver in deviating from our processes. And our processes should be dictated exclusively by statute, by directive, and by the election officials manual. That's how I would say it.
Yeah, I would like to point out, however, that the two of you in particular don't actually follow that, because in a low-volume election, you check physical remakes, vote by vote by vote, or race by race by race, and in a high volume, you don't do that, because of course you can't really do that. So,
That raises another question that probably is more relevant to the next one we're going to consider, but where are these real ballots for? These are photocopies. Are these printouts of the digitized ballot?
Yes, these are copies. The real ballots are in our vault.
I would, on this one, it's not as apparent. I think it's going to be more important on the next one. But let me try and understand what's written on the left-hand column that came with the first ballot adjudication. So it says card resolved, and it gives the date, manual resolution replaced automatic adjudication. What does R stand for? R colon.
Resolved.
Resolved. So manual, so this has been manually resolved to cast a vote for the second candidate, Wilson. And based on this discussion, you're going to need to go back in and mark that as an undervote.
Correct.
So currently in the system as it is, the vote has been manually resolved in favor of Wilson. Oh yeah, there's an R next to the name in that Wilson-Reynolds race. So I don't know, Mr. Chairman, how we want to express the board's interest. I concur with your summation earlier that an undervote, if that's how the machine counted it in this particular race, is the proper, just let the machine do it.
So if we had direct access to the adjudication system.
We'd make the change.
We would just make the change. I think then we're in the position, we need to do the adjudication, but not on the machine.
Right.
And so I think a motion, somebody's got to turn off their mics here.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. I think that it's important for me to note that if there was a recount where there would be a hand count, you might be looking at this same ballot.
That's right. And the same thing with, if this was randomly chosen for the post-election audit, we might
Yes.
be looking at this.
So,
You made it, what they did is something that is mandated when there is a recount, where you go in there, which we've had recounts before. So in a recount, conceivably, that ballot could be counted.
no. Not, I mean, in the end, that would be our call.
Correct, that's your
And I-
call,
and-
conceivably.
And I think that we would be consistent on that. We would look at that and we would say that it's a non-vote.
The issue was raised that it shouldn't have been reviewed, although it could be reviewed in a hand count.
That's right. It could end up being reviewed in a recount or an audit by what they call hand counts. We're not actually counting hands or counting with our hands, but having a human being doing the count. And that's happened before, where when a human being looks at it in a recount or an audit, they think it's different from what the machine said, right? And we have to reconcile that. And we've looked at it on occasion before, and we've seen, we understand why a human being would look at it and think this is a vote. And I can certainly understand why the individual staff members who looked at this thought this was a vote. That makes sense to me. But when we look at it, what we see is there isn't a reason for us to depart from what the machine said. There are some special cases where there is a reason, but this is not one of them.
I defer to the wisdom of the Summit County Board of Elections board members.
So, Mr. Chairman, based on what you said previously, it sounds like a motion would be in order to adjudicate this ballot, this race, Reynolds-Wilson, as an undervote.
Correct. And is there a second to that motion? Second. Any debate on the motion? I think we've had it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. All right, second one.
Okay, the next manual resolution replaced, okay, here we go, is an overvote, which we do have a duty to bring to your attention. There was a slice through the timing mark, and a vote was given, actually, no, this is not another.
This would also be an undervote.
Yeah, This would be another undervote because it's a vote for 3, sorry. But it's something that we can get ahead of an audit or a recount, because a slice through the vote is not an intention to vote for this candidate.
See, what do you mean by slice?
So if you look at for member of council at large, for City of New Franklin, there is a slice through the timing and through the oval for a candidate.
So you mean
And that was a vote given.
cut in the piece of paper?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the software read that as a vote for this candidate. So in this case, our due diligence, bringing this to your attention, is going to save us, not save us, but reduce time when we get ready to audit or if there is a recount.
So this was counted as an overvote, correct? Or in other
It was
words-
counted as an undervote because it's a vote for 3, but it was, but the software gave a vote to a candidate that did not get a vote.
Got it, okay, yes.
Due to what the camera saw.
Right, so the camera is looking at the slice in the paper, and it comes out dark, and therefore looks like a mark, but in fact, it wasn't a mark at all.
Correct.
All right.
So if I may understand, what we have on the left-hand column of the digitized ballot, this would be another one where it'd be good to see the original ballot, but it says, resolved, manual resolution replaced automatic adjudication. If you go down to the race in question, I see an R in parentheses next to Kevin Powell's name, so it looks like it's resolved to give that person a vote. I don't see an R next to Judy Jones's name, which looking at the ballot appears that's who the voter voted for. I don't pretend to understand all of how the machine's nomenclature works.
If you read so by virtue of it saying manual resolution replaced automatic adjudication, as I understand it, the automatic adjudication resulted in Kevin Powell receiving a vote from that paper tear. Judy Jones also received a vote, not from the paper tear, but by her oval being filled in. So in their manual resolution, which is signified by the R in parentheses, the only race that they actually impacted would be Kevin Powell's, and they resolved it to not be a vote for Kevin Powell. So Judy retains her vote, and thus there's no R next to her name because nothing changed.
So the R just indicates where there was a manual resolution.
Right.
Correct, where the edit took place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in none of the other races that have been chosen does it indicate. Yeah, I get that. So then let's talk about the trigger. The machine took this ballot and counted it. In a busier election, it would have cast a vote for this Powell. In a busier election, we would have never known that.
No, we would have, because we have to look at all the overvotes.
Well, this is an undervote. This is vote for 3.
Yeah, that's right.
The machine was happy. It was able to scan. It wasn't damaged to the point where the machine kicked it out.
That's right. So I think you're right, and that's unfortunate that you're right.
You better believe, we definitely would have caught this in an audit or a recount for sure.
Absolutely.
Right, but in the original.
But we had the time. We had the time, and we're doing it. That's all we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've already expressed myself. I think that's a mistake. But, and we don't have to get to an agreement on whether or not that my opinion is of any consequence. What I'm,
Or even correct.
or even correct, yes. But what I'm saying now is that we've done this, we have information available to us. What should the board do in adjudicating this ballot, knowing that the machine counts it? And being told that it counts it as a vote for Powell. How do I know it counted it as a vote for Powell?
This would be much easier if we were looking at the thing on the screen. It would tell us.
So there is a section in our software where it will show us
We're hampered right
pictures.
now by the fact that we don't have access to the system.
So we can go, with our software, we can show the least confident votes for a candidate. And we were using our software to do so. This came up as one of the least confident votes for a candidate.
Yeah, so in this, this is one respect in which the new system differs from the previous one, is it will tell us degrees of confidence, you know, which is a good thing.
Is it?
But, well, I mean, we may not enjoy it, but yes, because in fact, any system like this is going to have to draw a line somewhere, and when it's doing that, you know, there are varying degrees of likelihood of accuracy, and this is giving us an additional piece of information, which is,
Well, should we be looking
we're
at
not so
every,
confident in this one.
should we be looking at every one the system flags as not entirely confident?
Well, when this, I take it this is not an either-or determination that the machine is making confident, not confident, but rather some matter of degree, is that right?
Correct. So it gave it a vote, but it just is letting you know that due to oval density, this could potentially not be a vote. But, you know, in a bigger election, we are a big county, we would not be looking at undervotes. We're going to look at what the directive tells us, which is overvotes and blank ballots. And when we get to an audit or a recount, we will always make the right decision.
In this election, how many races does the system suggest it is less than confident on the vote cast? How big is that list that this POW list sits on?
Doesn't that depend on what confidence level you choose as your cutoff? Since it's not,
We don't get to choose the weight that the software uses for least confident, most confident,
so how many categories are there? Least confident, most confident?
just least and most confident.
It just shows you them in order, all the bubbles, images.
In order of what?
It just, I mean, I don't know how they order.
So there's a
from
section
most
where it
to
says least confident votes, and then there's another, and it shows you all the pictures of the least confident, with the least being at the rightmost. Then there's a section most confident, and the same thing.
Sections.
Right, but it's differentiating with, this is a question, is it differentiating within each category? Can you tell differences in degrees of confidence? So within the category of least confident, I thought you were saying it gives you an array in which you can see that these are the very least confident, and these are the somewhat more, but still least confident. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, so, I mean, we could just say if the machine calls it least confident, then do X, whatever X is. But then the machine obviously has some criterion that determines whether it falls into that least confident category. But it is telling us within that category, you know, degrees of difference in confidence. And the same thing in the most confident category, right?
That is correct.
Is there anything in between? I mean, is it either least or most? And
Just the pictures themselves in between, but there is no category.
okay,
It's an in between.
so no, are there any ballots or any races on a ballot that are neither least nor most confident? Or does every one of them fall into one category or the other?
I'm not sure at the moment. I'd have to go back and look.
Okay, so we don't know whether there's a middle unnamed category.
But how many races are on the least confident category? I mean, we have one here. How many other races are there? Or are there any others?
So you select the contest, any contest. It'll have a category for least
But
and most
you're
confident.
asking, yeah, in this election so far, how many instances are there of, quote, least confident?
Of the ballots you've scanned since last Friday
Right.
that are mail and absentee.
The least and most confident comes up for every single contest. So Akron Ward 1 would have least confident and most confident. Akron Ward 8, least
he's-
confident, most
he
confident.
said race, but what he really went was.
So every single contest will display that exact same graphic based upon that particular contest and the number of ballots you've run through tabulation. So if you've
Right.
run 10 ballots through, it will show you 10
Yeah.
bubbles of least confident, most confident, but every single contest has that.
What he really meant was how many ballots for a particular race fall into the least confident category, right?
That'd be interesting to know.
Did you want to know something different from that?
Well, with that, based on that further explanation, no. With the clarity that I'm getting from that explanation, not really. I was previously of the mind that the machine scanned all the ballots, tabulated all the races, and then said, but we're not completely confident. These individual races on all these ballots we're least confident. But I'm hearing that it's actually saying, we're going to scan this ballot, and we're most confident on this race, so it puts the whole ballot on some sort of,
Well, no, it's the race on the ballot, right? So the race for
Okay.
Akron Ward 1, it's going to categorize that as least or most confident, or maybe something in between that we're not sure about yet. We don't know whether those categories are exhaustive. And you're going to have that for every race on every ballot, right? And then it can tell us, of course, how many least confident there were for race A and how many for race B and so forth.
so every contest has has a best placed and a least placed. All right, so,
And maybe some undefined, unnamed middle category, we don't know yet.
what triggered this one? This is the only least confident one we have before us today. What triggered this one to be the only one? Why aren't we seeing all the least confidence in every race that you've scanned so far?
Well, I think that comes down to human review. As we talked about, I don't think that our teams are necessarily hunting down undervotes, but you have this in front of you for every contest. You see them. You see that something that, in the instance of this second iteration, it doesn't look like a pen mark. It looks like what one would define as a slice. So without drilling down into the nuts and bolts with that team, I believe they saw it, clicked it, and by virtue of it looking like an anomaly, brought it to us, and we agreed that it rose to the level to be reviewed by the board. So I don't think it's not a scavenger hunt. I think they just see it from least to most, and saw that that's something that probably wiser minds than ours should review.
So I'm going to say something. You tell me if it's an accurate assessment of where we are today. Is that we scanned all the ballots that we have by mail. There aren't a lot, and they went through it, and all of the races have a least confident, and staff looked at those, and all the least confident markings per race, per contest, this is the only one that they found that the automatic adjudication was questionable.
Again, I need to go back and look, but I believe for every contest, if you were to select the link to be able to view to look at the votes for that contest, I believe it scans every ballot's choice for this contest will be on the screen for this candidate. And it has the most confident and the least confident. So when they selected this contest, actually when they selected the choice for Kevin Powell, they saw all of Kevin Powell's least and most confident votes. Everything that was scanned.
Can I ask a
But
question?
I need to see.
Mind if I see it real quick? So it's a vote for not more than 3, and the slice is at the bubble. This is the first time I'm seeing the ballot. Pete and I have done adjudication before. Never once have we had a reason to click through least confident or most confident images. Are you saying that's what the staff was doing, or was it that they were looking at the undervotes? Because I think that's potentially creating some of the confusion here. Were they actually clicking through the least confident and looking at things, or did they just look at undervotes and that was the category they were in?
Undervotes.
So, I mean, this is an interesting one because I think there is a reason for us to depart from what the automatic count was, because this was not, in fact, a mark that the voter made at all. Let me just ask you this. Did somebody look at the actual physical ballot to confirm that this was a cut in the, okay. So they've looked at the original ballot. They see that's not a mark at all. That's a cut that the machine misinterpreted as a mark with not great confidence. The machine counted as a mark. I think there is an interesting question about what, if anything, we as a board should be doing with the information the system gives us about degree of confidence in marks. I don't think we need to resolve that right now, but I think we ought to come back to it.
Well, we almost have to answer that question right now if we're going to do anything with this ballot, because the only reason we know about this is because there is a deviation, appears to be a deviation in practice from past processes that brings it to our attention.
Right.
Were either or both of the races that we've talked about here for the last half hour,
Is it only a half hour?
were they designated as least confident? Were they actually designated as least confident, or did they just happen to be noticed by our people as they had the extra time to look through these ballots?
Well,
The
could
the
be
least and
both.
most confidence is defined by the portion of the bubble that's filled in, I believe. So I believe that they were reviewing the undervotes. We would have to go and look to see where it categorizes that in the array. I don't think either of us can necessarily speak to that right now.
But you say in the array is only 2 choices.
No, but within each category, there's an array,
Okay.
right? And what it's telling you is, this is the least confident of the least confident. This is
Okay.
the most confident of the most confident, and degrees in between, right? So it's giving us a lot of information.
I think the least confident and most confident thing has thrown this conversation into confusion, because if what you guys were looking at was, or your staff was looking at, was undervotes, that was just the category they were in. It wasn't looking at whether it was what the confidence level was of any particular filled-in oval, correct?
I think we would have to review it with the team to give you an exact answer.
I'm still hung up a little bit on why you were even, anybody on the team was even looking at undervotes, trying to figure out what the in the process of scanning, you scanned them. Well, I said what I said. What was the rationale for even looking at any undervotes?
You could save your time in an audit or a recount to get it right on the first go.
We've been using the system, but we're really still learning about it, right? And I do think that it's helpful we've learned that this was brought to us. We've learned some things. We probably have more to learn. I no doubt have more to learn. I think these things will lead to some policy discussions that we do need to have. So I think it would be better if we didn't spend a lot of time rehashing the decision to look at these. You know, we do need to give direction to the staff going forward, and we should do that. But we've also been presented with some things that, for example, this very ballot, right? We have an instance where the machine counted as a mark something that wasn't a mark at all. I think we can understand why that might have happened, just because the slice got represented in the image as darkness. But, and I'm not sure in the end what we should decide to do about this, but I do think it's good we know about it, and that we figure out exactly how we want to use our system going forward. It's not like we've been using it for 10 years. All the questions are well settled, and there's just no reason to look at and think about things like this. We're still learning the system. I think this discussion would have been easier if we had direct access to the system, as we normally do in recent times, normally do. And I look forward to being able to do that. Will we be able to do that next week?
I was going to ask that question. If we're in the adjudication process, what is the status of our connectivity so we can do a board review of these in the system?
Right now, we have an issue that I believe was rectified yesterday as far as the individual monitors and the large TV connecting to the adjudication PC. The problem that we're running into right now is it would be broadcast. The ballot would be broadcast. So we need to sit down further with the AV vendor and make sure that the two are properly separated, so that we can continue to have the camera and YouTube stream live while you have the image of the ballot in front of you.
There's no obligation that our meetings be broadcast, correct?
That's correct.
So this is one person's opinion, if the choice is between adjudicating in the system as a board meeting and not having a live stream of our meeting, I prefer to do that than to do this.
I think I would too.
Understood. We would like to be able to deliver you a product for the next meeting that you have both, but I think we understand that moving forward.
All right, so shall we return to the question of what to do with this ballot? Shall we return to the question of what to do with this ballot? I mean, it came to our attention. You know, it wouldn't necessarily have otherwise come to our attention, although we do need to talk about what to do going forward so that such things might. I do think that we should, I mean, it's clear that this was not a vote, right? And I think we should adjudicate it accordingly. Is there any okay? Go ahead.
So I've made both arguments in my mind, and I'm trying to figure out which one I like better.
Sometimes it helps to speak them out loud.
So the one argument is we found this out. We know we're burdened with the information and to change the machine. The other one is we know about this because of a practice outside of the practice, either the directive or past practice. And I think I like that process better. I think I prefer doing nothing on this ballot And if there is an audit or a recount, well, there will be an audit, but if this is a part of an audit, post-election audit, or in a recount, we will have eyes on this ballot to adjudicate it differently in those circumstances. The system, the current system is designed so that this would be to count, to give this candidate a vote where we don't think he would have if it was manually counted, would have had a vote, and would have looked at it at a point later in the process where eyes on paper are part of the directed process. So it seems, you know, very noteworthy to do nothing and to let this candidate presumably have a vote where it's simply because the paper was torn. That seems rather, you know, wow, why would you do that? And it's because that's the system we have. And if there's a closeness of the race, this is going to bubble to the surface and be addressed by us at a later point.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not as if there are no, you know, started to say random, but irregular events that cause something to come to our attention, right? That does happen. There, you know, coffee spill or, you know, various other kind of almost random things happen that bring something to our attention that would never otherwise have come to our attention. So that's why, although I see your point, I'm not too uncomfortable correcting what the tabulation system did here.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one of the situations where you can't make a wrong decision either way.
Or
Either
you
doing
can't
nothing.
make a right decision. I'm not sure what.
Well, both a yes or a no is fine, at least for me. The question is on precedent. And so what precedent are we creating for ourselves by doing this and, you know, probably creating a precedent of sorts?
Well, yes, but a precedent that's almost uninterpretable in the sense that
Unapplicable to future
yeah, whether it's applicable to other situations is going to be pretty endlessly arguable.
Well, I think that it is problematic now that I've listened to what Brian just presented, because people who are on the ballot should expect that they're going to be treated all the same. We have an anomaly here because people had time on their hands to look at ballots that they would not otherwise have looked at and found a couple of issues that we are now going to correct, or we're going to adopt, or whatever. At least that's the suggestion, and we already did it on the one. And now we're saying, I think the message is knock it off, don't do that anymore, follow the procedure, so all the remainder of the ballots that are going to come in aren't going to get that look at that these few have received. And I think then those people on the ballot have not been treated the same, they've been treated differently. And
Well,
if we're going to be consistent and treat everybody the same, we either have to tell them, I want you looking at every ballot the same way you looked at these two, or we're going to just go with whatever the machine did on both of these.
Well, I think you raise a valid point that applies to this election, right? I mean, I don't think the fact that we did it this way in one election means we have to do it the same way in another. In fact, we have a whole different system than we used to have, right?
No, that's true.
But yeah, I think that since we've done this so far in this election, we probably should follow through and do it the same way when you say for the rest of this election, but when you say people expect that their ballots will be treated the same, yes, in a sense, of course, that's true. They also have an expectation that when they don't vote for somebody, that we don't count that as a vote for somebody, right? And this voter obviously didn't vote for this candidate. I think we
But
would
the next
disappoint their expectations if we counted it as a vote.
No, it's the horns of a dilemma. I appreciate that, but the next person who had a slit on that went through his oval and doesn't get counted or does get counted or however, but it goes different from the way we're going to go, I think it's unfair. I think consistency is the most important thing that we have to do.
Right, but I don't think, I think that applies within a given election. I don't think there's as much necessity for that between elections, right? So we could decide today, I don't propose that we do, but we could decide today that there's a better way than the way we've been doing it so far in this election. And so we're not going to do it the same way in the next election.
Well, are we
But-
going to continue, though, in this election to ask our people
That's what I
to-
think, that's where I think you have a good point.
And if they don't have extra time on their hands to come in on the weekend and do it? The thing that does trouble me, somewhat, and we have great people. I mean, we're really blessed at this board with really great people, but, you say, hey, we got extra time on our hands, let's look at this, let's look at that. Well, now that raises issues that we would not otherwise have had. They would have gone totally unnoticed, maybe, but the election would have been run and the count would have been run according to the rules. Right now,
Well,
it's
but no,
not.
there isn't a rule about this, so this is not violating a rule, okay?
It's a process that's been adopted. The process has been changed because one day or whatever, there was extra time available.
I don't think the board has prescribed anything where you could say that this violated a board policy or rule, okay? We may want to create such a policy, but I don't think we had. There are just happenstances sometimes that bring things to our attention. And we're never going to eliminate all of those things.
True.
Right? We need to do our best as a board to make these adjudication decisions consistently, at least within an election. We may see a reason to change our practice for another election, but within an election. And so I think we should continue with the process that has already occurred so far for the rest of this election. I think that's a valid point. And also, we need to talk about, what to do in the future. But in the meanwhile, the fact that the staff did look at these things has brought some questions to light that we do need to grapple with. We've obtained, as a result, valuable information that we need to process. And it will affect, I think, what we do in the future, not what we do in the rest of this election, but what we do in the future.
If I may, the response to my concern, that previously expressed concern, should have been this, which I processed I've made my own response to my own concern, and
I'm sure yours are always the best responses to your own questions.
Well, it's very informative. It's why I can support the motion to remove the vote from Kevin Powell in this race. And it's almost to what Kevin said earlier, which is if we took the vote away, this might surface in an automatic recount or paid recount, or it might surface in a hand count, in an audit, post-election audit, in which case we would, at that point, 2 weeks from now, or 3 weeks from now, be taking away that vote. So we're preemptively doing what we might be doing at the end of the rainbow, which was to your point about saving time, but I would challenge that notion, given the considerable discussion we've given to this issue, as to whether or not anybody has saved any time.
Yes, but that's
addressing it.
on, yes, but that's on us.
But we're probably making, your motion is, I can support your motion because we're only making a change that we might end up having to make during certification. And this is fortunately, this is a clear-cut issue that there's no, it's a cut, and we know that it's a vote, and there's no indication that a voter was actually attempting to vote for that candidate. So thankfully, it's an easy choice. But I can support the motion to take away that vote now rather than later. Because I think we'd be taking it away now rather than later.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. I'm not sure the movement any longer agrees with his motion, but
My colleague here was so articulate. Now I'm fully convinced.
all right. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. Thank goodness there are only 2 ballots. Thank you, gentlemen.
Same thing. Recap these two.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, they're not the same.
All right. So the next item is approval of remakes. We're ready for that. Okay, all right. Approval of remakes. Good morning.
First time using this. Hello. We'll have 2 sets. We're going to do the Uokava emails first. I will hand these out. And there was nothing, no questions of voter intent on anything on these.
That answers the question I was about to ask.
That is correct. Those are all Uokava email remix, correct?
I move that we approve UCOR 2009 through UCOR 2028 as UCR 2009 through UCR 2028.
Is there a second? Any debate on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. Thank you. Oh, we got more.
We do, yeah, those were Uwakava.
Okay.
These are standard. These both were standard absentee. One was a remote ballot that needed to be remade, and the other one was something where on the machine somehow the ID envelope had slid underneath the ballot, and the voter's name and address was actually printed on the ballot as a mail out, as it was mailed out. So in order to maintain ballot anonymity, we wanted to remake it so that the voter's name is not on the ballot.
So the name that was printed on this ballot could be the voter, could be the previous voter, could be the next voter. I mean,
No, it's the voter that the ballot was sent to, because that's actually, oddly enough, it went through the post office like that, looking at that was their addressed, should have been the addressed envelope, but the ballot somehow got flipped on top of the ID envelope instead, so
Yeah.
it printed on the ballot. So that was absolutely that voter's
so the
ballot.
ink, it happened after stuffing. I'm trying to remember the
Yes.
horseshoe there.
In-
So
in the stuffing,
It stuffs
somehow-
it, and then it applies the address.
That's the last thing that basically happens before it comes out onto the conveyor belt, is the name and address of the voter is sprayed onto the envelope.
That's up here. See there? Yeah. So folded it, stuffed it, and then applied the address. But this was flapping out, so it was a bad stuff.
Correct.
That's the first that I've seen. Is it, if this were to be done other times, is it more likely that, have we seen this in other times, and just pull that ballot and rerun it?
Yes.
Yeah. This one just happened to get passed.
Typically, when the final scan will see that it's printed on something that it shouldn't be, and it'll spit it out as bad. This one just happened to print in a spot that, as it went through that final scan, it seems the system took it as okay and it got through. But it typically does spit it out.
Nothing on the back. And then this one was a remote ballot.
And we have put a process in place to ensure no more go out like this. We're checking every ballot as it comes off the conveyor belt to make sure it did not print on another ballot. It's just on the ID envelope.
Against, and yes. The, and where was the remote ballot from? I mean, what triggers it? What,
Remote ballot is a specific type of application from the SOS, and it's basically someone that has a specific disability where they need to vote on a computer at home, which is what the ballot is right there. They requested it. I typically call and verify that that is what they in fact wanted, because we do get a lot of these apps in that requesting that, and they don't actually want that. They just want a standard ballot. This one did actually want this, so it was processed as such and sent to them, and that is how
so
it's
a
returned.
remote ballot is a application process for a disabled voter, a voter with a disability that's voting through essentially an at-home automated machine. They
It's,
don't have to mark the ballot,
they're marking on
punch.
their computer, and then they print the ballot out.
How long has this system been in place?
That I don't know. As long as I've been an absentee, I know it's existed.
You've just forgotten, we've encountered these.
They're very rare. It's very rare that I have a voter that actually wants to use this. Usually, I'll get a handful of those. I think it's 11G is the form number, and I always call the voter to verify that's what they want, because 99 out of 100 times they actually just wanted a standard absentee ballot and just filled out the wrong form.
So the application comes in from Form 11G through, you said, the Secretary of State?
No, it's just like any other absentee application that a voter sends in. They just happen to fill out the wrong form, or a form for a remote ballot as opposed to a standard absentee.
So this remote ballot application is different than the application for the
Correct.
Traditional ballot by mail, but they can make a traditional application by mail using a different form to request a ballot that is different,
Yes.
in a different format.
Correct. Yeah, so the 11A is standard absentee for by mail. The 11G, I think is the 11G, is the remote ballot. Using a remote ballot marking system, I think is the verbiage.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move we approve AVOR 6000 and 6001 as AVR 6000 and 6001.
We have a motion and a second. Any debate on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. Thank you. Next item is the approval of the bills. Is there a motion to approve those? Any debate on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. Next item is the approval of the payroll. This is for 2 periods, September 22nd through October 5th, and October 6th through October 19th, full-time, part-time, and overtime for each period. Is there a motion to approve the payroll?
Second.
Any debate on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. The next item is the adoption of the minutes of the October 7th board meeting at which all members were present. Is there a motion to adopt those minutes? Is there a second? Any debate on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion is adopted without dissent. Next item is polling location security. Morning, Josh.
Good morning. So in recent years, it has been increasingly more common for polling locations, the facilities, both public and private, to request funds to cover the cost of security measures that they take at the polling locations. We've also had requests to modify security at locations as well. And after speaking, I speak with Lance and Pete about this stuff every time. And after speaking with Lance last week, I don't want to speak for him, but I think he thought it was best to maybe bring this to the board's attention, that we cover this each time as far as getting emails and phone calls about whether we will cover the costs of extra security at these locations and whether or not they can make certain modifications to their security measures.
Yeah, just with this popping up a little bit more frequently, and I don't know, Board Member Brian, if you've had this in the past from your time as director or deputy director, I figure with Josh getting more requests about this, maybe it was something we wanted to kind of bring up and just kind of figure out.
But I just wanted, you said something right at the end, Josh, about, I can't recall the exact words, but something about modifying security.
So we've had requests for like metal detectors and things of that nature.
This is a very thorny issue. It's an understandable request. It's a request that we clearly you have no budget for, we have no budget for. Consistency is obviously a concern. I do think we need to give a response to the people making these requests in writing, but that response isn't just no. It has to, I think we need to explain a couple of things that we have to be careful for. One, we have to explain what the answer is. But two, we have to be very careful to advise, we should advise polling locations that they don't have themselves the authority to add additional security that doesn't comply with the voters' rights. And so we might need a prosecutorial input on the response that we give, because if you say no to this polling location and they decide to set up metal detectors, is that legal? Can
Yeah, we
allow-
addressed this we have addressed this before. So is Twinsburg, and it's a school under Ohio law. They're allowed to have metal detectors at the school. So you're using their building that day, which they cannot charge you for under the statute. But it doesn't mean you have exclusive ownership of the building that day. So we did address this issue actually, and it was at Twinsburg, and the metal detectors went forward. And we researched that issue too, and I think the Secretary of State also opined that if they wanted to put a metal detector up as part of that plan, then that would be, they can't charge you for it, but they can have it. If it's, I think in that situation it was a school.
Yes, it was.
Okay, well, that's why I suggest we get legal input on the response, because what if the polling location host wanted to have uniformed, armed officers at the polling location?
Is it a private or public location?
Let's say it's public for purposes of discussion. This was a school that asked you, correct?
So in terms of what? The metal detectors?
So the metal
This
detector would have a
was
school resource officer, which I believe was it would be I think in Twinsburg. The school was in Twinsburg Township, which I believe is the sheriff's office, does the policing in the township. And so they would have had a uniformed officer manning the metal detectors, which I believe is fine, 100%.
So, yeah, all these schools, pretty much every school has a uniformed police officer every day.
I don't know if every school does, but I don't want to make that
You're right,
assumption.
right. A lot of them do. And so there is like the metal detector, the school could have its own security routinely, armed police officer that they pay for. Anyway, thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Okay.
I'm not even sure we should, I don't know what the nature of the reply should be from the board.
Well,
Every question, I guess, from a legitimate partner does deserve an answer. In this particular case that you have, was it a private or a public facility?
This is public.
Right.
So we've had multiple requests for this election from public facilities.
And
Are
if
these-
our answer is no,
are these-
how are we going to communicate it?
Are these schools in each instance, or some of them not schools?
In this case, for this election, at schools, yes.
So let's separate the question of whether we're going to provide some sort of personnel to provide security from the question of what the school or other institution can do itself, okay? Those seem to me to be very different questions. Currently, the director and deputy director can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we have the funds budgeted to pay for such an expense, to provide actual personnel for security.
Well, if you did it one, the request would go through the roof.
Right.
So saying yes here and there would, over time, would be probably grow.
I don't doubt that. So I think the answer has to be no, and the explanation is budgetary. We simply don't have the budget for that. I suppose we could discuss in the future, in the not very distant future, whether there should be a budget for that. But we certainly don't have one for this year.
Yeah, I replied no to this question before, and in the reply, and that was why I think there needs to be a third discussion, is how do we reply, and what do we say in the reply? One time, and I don't know that it was the right response, but I told, it was schools, and we told them no.
This
and we
is
told
when you were
when I was
director.
director. And we told them that these are the elections next year, the dates of the election for the following calendar year, and that other school districts frequently made that an in-service training day. So it didn't go over very well with the recipient of my response, but we basically suggested that it'd be good for you to close your schools and do it as an in-service training if you could plan this far ahead, as others do. I don't know what I'm not dictating that that should be the response here or suggesting that that should be the response here. But I do think we need to reply, and we probably need to provide some level of direction as to what that reply should say. If it's anything beyond no, and we don't have the resources.
Well, don't you think that for now, no, and we don't have the resources suffices?
I do.
I totally agree with your prior suggestion that schools should make this an in-service day. I mean, elections are pretty predictable. Schools have in-service days. I realize that they might prefer to have them on a Friday or a Monday, but I think elections are important.
You know, it might be as a gateway to that, we just reply to this one, and then we send separately a letter to every school superintendent saying 2026 is going to be a big election year. We're going to have a May and November election. These are the dates, and there'll be considerable traffic. And if you want to consider it in service, consider not having school dates, just as a suggestion to them under a separate letter rather than in part of the response. Might be a courtesy to them for their forward planning.
I like that idea.
But yeah, I putting them in the same letter to those schools, it does come across a little snarky.
Well, I mean, they're asking for something for this election. It's too late for them to schedule an in-service day, I'm sure. So it's not relevant to the response to these particular schools' requests.
That's probably why it sounded snarky when I sent it. But yeah.
So, do you need any further guidance at this point?
I think that's pretty clear, thank you.
Okay. And we can talk, I guess, in a little while, whether there's, about the question of budgeting for this in the future, although it seems to me that it would be such a large ticket item that it doesn't seem reasonable. All right, thank you. Next item is maintenance proposals.
And just before the board meeting started, Andrew and Kevin had asked if we could maybe wait on this agenda item for maybe another future board meeting while they kind of discuss on how they want to approach it.
Okay,
You're pulling this?
yeah, no objection here.
Already turned the page.
2026 budget request is the next item.
All right, I'll just kind of start us off here. Cheryl, Sharon, Melissa, Amanda, and I have been working on the budget request for probably the last 3 or 4 weeks or so. Finally got to a spot where today's board meeting made sense to start to present it. With Sharon, Melissa, and Amanda kind of being new to this, Cheryl and I kind of discussed yesterday where it might make the most sense for kind of Cheryl to walk through things since she's familiar with presenting the budget. So Cheryl, if you don't mind, I'll pass it off to you.
In front of you, well, I should probably use the microphone.
Yes, you should.
So what you have in front of you here is the itemized listing of our accounts and our predicted expenditures for next year. So each of these sub-accounts denotes a different type of spending. So the first category is our board member salaries. Second category is part-time salaries, so our seasonal staff. The third is all of the PEOs, and so on and so forth. So it starts with our salaries, moves into the overtime account, and then our employee benefits account, and then it goes into our contract services. So any of our annual contracts with our vendors, any of our line items that we've paid in previous years is all in there. So we go off of a similar like year when we're creating the budget. So we use 2022 as our like year for 2026. And that is where we came up with these figures. Also made adjustments for new contracts, new vendors, obviously the Blue Crest equipment we didn't have in 2022, things like that. We have some outstanding items. These are our highlighted items here. So there are a couple things that we wanted to bring to your attention to get a little more direction on before determining our budget. But to give you the lay of the land here, and this is usually how we present it. So the first, I guess it would be the second column that says our 2026 BOE budget, and then next to that it says county offering. So these county offering numbers are not numbers that we got. These are not hard and fast numbers necessarily from the county for what they're proposing. These are the numbers we were able to pull out of our fiscal system from what was already in there. So we have not had our preliminary meeting with the county yet. We use the numbers that our fiscal system says they're offering us, but I fully anticipate that these will be adjusted quite substantially.
Where do those numbers, I mean, I know they come from the system, but how did the system get those numbers?
To be honest with you, that's a discussion I need to have with the fiscal department, because as Lance and I were looking at it, there are some kinks to work out, I think, maybe some attachments from other organizations to our budget somehow based on the funds in the orgs. So we do not use the systems to submit our budget. We still meet with the county in person. So a lot of our negotiations are done using our spreadsheet, and then the numbers are input after the fact. So this is a new way that they're rolling out doing the budget. They have other departments using this. So we went ahead and took the numbers that they have in the system as our starting point, essentially. But we can see here, like our PEO account has no funding at all. We don't expect that to be the case. So that's really the discrepancy that I'm attempting to point out here, is that we do not see these as hard and fast numbers coming from the county. This is just what we were able to pull at this, early in the process time.
So they don't even look like last year's numbers.
Yeah, it's a stark difference even from this year's budget.
I meant this year's. So you wanted to raise some questions with us, right?
Yes. So for our overall budget, we're looking at asking for just under $8.5 million for next year. That is a slight bit higher than what we've used this year, but knowing next year's a gubernatorial election, we'll have much higher volume elections, presumably. There are a couple line items that we wanted to point out in here that pertain to specific circumstances that really only take effect next year. So we've talked about doing registration drives throughout the county. So some of the numbers on here will reflect the cost of staffing those registration drives. I think our largest outstanding question comes in terms of advertising for those registration drives, because that is really a hard number to pin down without knowing how we're going to do some of the advertising. So we have the potential for using the newspaper, using, of course, our social media would be free, but whether we want to dive into doing electronic ads, geofencing and targeted ads for Summit County voters, or soon-to-be voters if we're trying to get them to register. But that leaves a little bit of a gray area, and staffing for those registration drives will obviously be quite different if we are doing one location for one day versus if we're doing one location for an entire week. So looking to the board for a little bit more guidance about how we want to handle the registration drives that we're planning for next year. On another note, we have been told that there are 8 state petitions circulating currently, and we have the potential to receive all of those with next July's filing deadline. This would be a a short timeline as we've seen in the past and a high amount of labor required. So we did budget in, and this is in our overtime account as well as in our seasonal account. We added in actual line items for state petitions where if you look on the second page under our overtime account, the last two line items of that account would be overtime for full-time and part-time as well, because we anticipate working extended hours and long weekends if and when all of those arrive. Or to speak practically about it, even if half of those arrive, we will be working quite a bit during that time period.
Those are the two main questions you'd like us to discuss?
Yes. And then one thing to note, just for our increase in the salaries, we actually will have 27 pays that fall within the calendar year in 2026. Typically, we have 26 pays, so that did inflate the budget just a tiny bit.
Okay, so what I propose is that we first talk about the voter registration drive question, then proceed to the question of personnel for the petition, statewide petitions, and then other questions that we may have, if that's agreeable. First, the voter registration drive. You raised two questions. One was about how we would advertise it, which would have a large bearing on the cost.
Correct.
And the other is the number of days that we would be doing it in each location.
Yes.
So why don't we take the advertising question first?
Do you want to explain some of the things you found with advertising?
Yeah.
We were looking at different ways. I know before Lance has some information, actually Sharon had some of how you used to do it at the grocery stores, et cetera. Way back when, we were looking at digital media actually wasn't around back then. Do we want to explore digital media? Grocery stores are great, but now we have Instacart. Everybody doesn't go to the grocery store. Some people have things delivered now. Do we want to tackle major events? Lock 3, Rockin' on the Rivers, those type thing. How do we want to approach this? So we're looking at a little bit of direction from you so we could prepare maybe a marketing presentation to do this registration drive and get it prepared for you guys and get a good figure looking at, are we going to do the fair? Do we want to geofence? The fair, people that aren't registered, where we can upload, people that live in Summit County but aren't registered, that they get targeted if they go to the fair and they get the Google ads when they're on YouTube, come register or click here to register, those type things. Do we want to do print media? Do we want to do newspaper ads? Do you want to do billboards? I don't know. I'm looking for direction
Right.
to see what you guys are looking to do.
All right, so let's talk about digital first, and whatever we conclude may have implications about the other kinds of advertising that we want to do. It would be helpful, I think, in the discussion if we had, I know this is difficult, but if we had some idea of the costs that we're looking at to do the various digital approaches. So, what kinds of, you've already mentioned some, but what kinds of digital approaches have you considered, and what can you tell us about the cost of each?
Well, they can range, and they're per clicks, and they can be extensive, but they can range from inexpensive, like $1,400, to I've seen them go up as much as $5,000 a month, depending on clicks and how many events you want to target and how often people reach out and click on those events. We could get some estimates.
So that there's an element of indeterminacy there because
There
it depends
is.
on what other people do.
Correct.
And we do have the option of an unclickable ad, right? Where it's just a solid, so go ahead and talk
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, we can do that on we can do some things on our social media as well, which is free. But I like,
But not everybody follows us on Facebook.
correct. And
And-
some people aren't
and-
even on.
And chances are, registered voters are overrepresented among our followers on Facebook.
Correct.
And we're not after them so much.
Yep. That's why I kind of like some of the geofencing and getting out there. Some of the media companies actually will upload all of our registered voters. They'll take our 370 whatever thousand voters that we have registered and exclude them. So they cannot click. They will not get those geofenced ads. But they will capture your data of you are a resident of Summit County, so we want to target you. We want to get you
So,
registered.
I mean, there would be some value in reaching registered voters in that they may need to update their registrations, but as an economical measure, maybe it makes sense to exclude them, since most registered voters won't need to update their registration.
Right.
So I guess what I'd like to know is if we did everything you're suggesting but excluded our current registered voters, including the geofencing, what kind of cost might we be looking at?
I can get some estimates that way. We would have to like target, I would say like big events, what, like events down at Lock 3, I would come to mind. Maybe it's the Mum Fest in Barberton, big Twins Day, gatherings of large events of people.
I have a more basic question. Is it the duty or the commission or the obligation of the Board of Elections to encourage people to register to vote? Because I see that a lot of the parties do that. They say, let's go to this Rib Fest and we'll sign up a bunch of voters, or let's go to this country club and we'll sign up a different group of voters, or whatever. And I'm not saying that it's a bad idea or anything. It's certainly a noble idea, and we want to encourage people to vote. But there's a little bit of, there are independent interests. The Ds have an interest in getting registered voters. The Rs have a similar interest, but maybe different focus groups or whatever. And I know we've done this before, but sometimes I need a refresher course to get back to why do we do this? Are we supposed to do this? Do we have to do this? And do we have to use taxpayer money to do it? But
Yeah, well, to review,
thank you, Professor. Is this going to be on the exam? That's the big question.
I never answer that question. You should assume anything can be on the exam is my answer. First of all, it's not something we are legally obliged to do. But in our discussions in the relatively recent past, we have said that we wanted to do this, which is why the staff is approaching us about this. This is, when private individuals or groups do voter registration drives, the quality of the work varies. And as we've discussed this in the recent past, one of our main goals, I think, was to try to make sure that voter registration gets done right the first time. And if we're doing it, it'll be done right. Brian, feel free to chime in here, since this was actually Brian's idea with which I agreed.
No was the answer to all three of your questions. It's not our duty. We don't have to use taxpayer funds, and there was a third one that was a permeation of, do we have to? But yes, we've had these independent groups who are out soliciting, and they have filled a gap since the Great Recession back in '08. They've just grown. I don't know if it's completely causal, but they've grown, and they give us bad work product. And that may still occur. Even if we were to undertake this initiative, they still may be out there doing their thing, giving us bad work product. My thought for bringing it up at the time was, if the county was doing a more visible promotion of registration, people wouldn't be as inclined to rely on the self-appointed outside organizations that have done this and just produced hundreds of thousands of duplicate registrations that are just nonsense, requiring us to spend a lot of time and energy, and in some cases affecting the quality of our voter roll, because we're making changes based on what's provided, and it's just all over the place. But so there's a question first of, do we want to do this? And then the question is, well, what is this and how much does it cost? But Melissa brings up a very imperative question or point, and that is, what we used to do is almost irrelevant because we haven't done it in the digital age. $100,000 in labor will get us about 50 hours of teams of 4, 20 teams of 4, give us about 50 hours of booth time. 3 days is 24 hours, so you might be able to do this on the cheap, somewhere around 60, 70,000 without even advertising it. But $50,000, but in the digital age where you can take this, because people can register online now, and we can advertise I'm getting to where you left off here in a second, but we can forget the in-person thing, forget chasing down festivals and setting up at city halls and libraries and grocery stores and all that, and hiring people and making that manageable. Because in the meantime, modernization has delivered us a basket of an alternative way that is not only less expensive, it's probably superior in every way. And what do I mean by superior? If I bring you a link to a Secretary of State online voter registration site, you have the confidence to know it's a legitimate thing because it's verified, and you're going to a state site, and you're registering, and you're doing it online, and it's coming to us all typed out and everything for us to do our follow-up work. But if I send workers out that may or may not show up, that may or may not do the right thing, and we may or may not have chosen a fair location, spreading these around the county, and then we have to get them all back, and then we're reading handwriting. So you've got a handwritten card versus a typed card. You've got an arguable placement of resources, very expensive placement of resources. So I think it would probably, from what I'm thinking, based on what you said, I think it would probably be irresponsible for us to be thinking about an in-person system when there's a digital alternative that would be, we could easily say every 17-year-old in Summit County target the internet and just put this out with a link to the proper link to the Secretary of State's website and say, if you want to update your registration or register anew, go here. But then that raises the question, why are we doing it? Why isn't the state doing it? So whose resources, you could have a very aggressive campaign for $50,000 countywide for 4 weeks before the registration deadline. It would it would simplify the management of the board tremendously. I mean, to take that on is a big responsibility. Yeah, my thinking has changed based on the provocative presentation here about pursuing digital. I can't think of a way in which the digital isn't superior to the manual in any way, in cost, in efficiency, in probably fairness, in quality of the information we get
And
in.
return on investment.
The return on the investment, all of that.
Well, the one thing I can think of is, who it reaches will be different. And so there may be a reason to do some of both.
Well,
but-
we're here, so a person who, you're talking about the person who's not online.
Essentially, yeah.
We're
Or
here.
at least not enough.
Right. And how are they registering to vote now, under the current system where we do nothing and that just you have individual groups and,
Well, I think we're trying to reach people who haven't been registering to vote, right? The ones that have been registering to vote are not the ones we really need to reach.
right. But I mean, for the people who are not online, how does the current system serving them?
Not well enough, and we might do better. Now, whether it's worth the cost is a question, but I don't want to sidetrack you from this discussion. I'm just saying, in response to your saying, I can't think of a way in which one would be superior to the other. I'm not saying that the paper system is superior. I'm just saying that it has an advantage that the digital doesn't. The digital has other advantages.
Yeah, it has an added component for that person who's not online who might drive by or see the printed advertisement. Although we could advertise the online access.
Yeah, although for some people that's just not
Right.
something that they would be able to manage. I don't want to sidetrack us though. Let's stick with the digital for the time being.
Yeah, well, yeah, my questions were answered. The answers raised a number of other issues.
Yeah.
Which also I've pondered a little bit, because I keep thinking, and I mean this in the nicest way, I want to see a particular group of people get registered to vote. You worry about your group of people. I mean, and that's what, quite honestly, it evolves to. That the Ds, they want to target an area where the return on investment is going to be best for them. The Rs would also target areas where they would feel that the return on investment.
And they could still do that.
Would be best for them. And I just have wondered if that doesn't take care of, nobody goes unattended. Now, you've sort of suggested maybe they do, Bill.
So I think
Or maybe Brian did.
well, in a different way. Brian was saying, and I think it's right, that the quality of the work in many instances is poor enough that although they're actually being reached, they're not really being helped in the way that they should be. And we as a board are being disturbed by it because we have to deal with a lot of bad VR applications.
And again, though, if the answer to each one of my three questions was no, then
We
the
don't,
follow-up
the two of us
question
don't
is,
remember your third
so
question.
why are we doing it?
Right. That's a good question that needs to be answered.
Well, but you answered it.
Well, I gave an answer. I didn't know if, I don't know
okay,
if it's
all right.
compelling.
Well, he gave an answer that if we are going to do it, here's
It has
a
to,
good.
it has to
We're
be
in the
digital.
new age, and so.
No, the answer had to do with the number of bad apps that we're getting.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
But the
You
answer,
are
and the
right.
response to that is, if we do this in a pervasive way, and in some sort of just pervasive way, we're not stopping those bad actors from still doing what they do.
No, but they don't have this, if we're pretty successful, which is a big if, if we're pretty successful, they have less incentive to do it.
Yeah.
So we'll get less of it.
You would hope
won't-
over time,
yeah.
yes. But after further thought, and it seems to me, the more I think about it, that there is almost no justification for doing an in-person that I can think of over the digital campaign. That doesn't answer Ray's question, which is, do we even need to be in this? Do we even need to be asking the county for resources to do this? But if we did ask the county for resources, I don't know that we could justify an in-person system because it is so expensive, so managerially difficult when you compare it to the digital way. And of course, that begs a question, what percentage of society is not online? It's a pretty small number these days, but it's a number.
Well, I think the question is online, enough to be comfortable registering to vote this way?
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of people who are online, but wouldn't be comfortable doing this online. They can check their email.
Keep going up to a senior break.
Okay.
So I'll move. He's listening all the way to the door closes. He was about to go.
But he's the most important audience for this discussion.
Well, but I do think we've made progress in the conversation, because I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, but I just can't, I couldn't even defend an in-person system when we have a digital alternative. And look, government's changing, is embracing these. There'll come a time when we vote online, and it'll be more secure than our paper optical scan ballot, which is very secure. Write that down.
I'm not so sure, Brian, but maybe.
Yeah, but that's far in the future. But what are you sure about? The voting online or the?
Yeah, the voting.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was, but, yeah. So as you prepare your budget for next year, is it in person, digital, hybrid, and should we even be doing it? Those are the questions on the
the
table.
should we be doing it, I think we need to give them direction on, because that makes a difference whether they spend any time
Right.
planning and budgeting. In the abstract, I think that there could still be a role for some in-person registration drives. The problem I see with it is, how do you target them so that you reach the people that you're not going to reach with the digital? And I haven't given that much thought,
Right.
but I'm not sure there's a good answer. I don't know whether
I
there's a
have
good
seen
answer.
advertisements from the Secretary of State promoting online absentee, or not absentee, but online registration and voter registration, which begs a question, does the Secretary of State have a program that we could amplify, that we could buy and just spread around Summit County? Of course, we'd want to see what the campaign looks like. But if they've already got something that we can, there was a time when we used to get all of our voter registration cards from the Secretary of State because they were free. We didn't have to buy them. And they would send us 10, 15,000, 25,000 at a time. I think they've
No, they still do.
do they? Yeah. But they wouldn't pre-print our address on it, though.
No,
Yeah.
they still pre-print their own.
Yeah, that was the downside, but we'd give them out to people just to save cost. I suspect that he might have a program that we could
Well, I know they did something.
private label, if you will.
I know they did something back in 2024, because I don't remember, I'm sure it was in a press release as well, but I remember seeing billboards, I remember seeing like bus wraps even, and I'm pretty sure it was the Secretary of State's office, not like League of Women Voters, or there may have been those organizations doing the same thing, but if I remember correctly, the SOS was doing something last year.
And it would be nice if these outside groups would promote the online voter registration system rather than doing cards and whatnot. I mean, when it comes to signature collection, they've got to go to the person, obviously. But as they do voter registration drives, it'd be nice if we could communicate to them. Don't do your thing. Have your people that you're out there recruiting to do this way. Give them an iPad and have them do it online when you're standing there, whatever, because the card we get from the Secretary of State's better than the cards they're giving us. But anyway, that's a whole different conversation.
Went silent as soon as I know you guys were talking about.
Well, since you were the most important audience for this discussion, we didn't want to say much in your absence.
Yeah, you bring up a very good question. I mean, how much should we spend doing this? And then you bring up the question, and that's an important number for them for planning purposes. How much work do they put in?
That's right, we're on the budget, aren't we?
Yeah, well, here's your proposal. No, we decided not to do it. You know, why spend the time planning or researching if we're not committed to doing it? And this is for 2026?
Yeah.
Well, at the risk of sounding indecisive or wanting to kick the can down the road, which never my objective. Impulse is my forte. I should write that down. I would like to know what the Secretary of State has to offer, because that might be something we can either borrow, dovetail, or add resources to.
Brian, I do have access to all of their social media videos.
What are they going to spend
things.
money on? We probably have to talk to them and say, what are you going to do in 2026 to promote voter registration and, you know, around the state? And is there any opportunity for counties to participate in that? But I'm really, after considering the two, I'm very down on an in-person system. I would be embarrassed almost to run an in-person system in a modern age. So much has changed in the last 20 years. And I can't fathom that it would be, the ROI would be worth, by comparison, the investment. That is an impulsive response to the presentation and the thoughts. It's stimulated me thinking.
Well, so I think it does make sense to find out what the Secretary of State plans to do in '26. I don't know for sure whether you're going to be able to get that information.
Why? Because they don't know themselves?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, that's a response. If they don't know, that's because we need, for planning purposes.
Right. So, well, we're meeting next week, so that this is not really a problem, but I was thinking, all right, if the Secretary of State's office says, well, we don't know, you know, what should they do? If the Secretary of State says, we're doing nothing, I don't think that'll be the answer, but you know, what should they do? If the Secretary of State says, oh, we've got this program, obviously they'd need to come back to us and
Tell us what it is.
Tell us what it is.
Yeah, because we have to want to use it.
So my question for everybody, but the director and deputy director especially, is on timing. You know, how much time do we have to figure this out?
Yeah, so right now, Pete and I are scheduled to go in front of county council for our budget November 24th. So we've got the next meeting on November 3rd, and then we have one more meeting on November 18th where we would handle provisionals. So we've got 2 more meetings after this one. That's why I wanted to at least get this in front of you today, kick off the conversation on a couple of these things, knowing we still have 2 more meetings to actually button it up.
It might be that we put in a dollar amount for a budget for the task of voter registration drive, but not have all the detail. And if we even decide to pull the plug, then it's just money we don't spend. But putting a number in the budget will at least allow them to take the temperature of the county to fund such an initiative.
I agree. So then the question is, you know, what's a reasonable number to put in that would allow us, you know, to do a meaningful digital campaign? And I'm not asking for an answer right now, just that's the question that needs an answer. I was thinking the same thing. We don't really need to have a plan at this point. If we want to, you know, if we're serious about doing it, not in the sense that we've totally committed to doing it, but in the sense that, you know, we want to look at it seriously, and we want to be able, if we conclude that it's worthwhile to do it, then we just need something in there that will, you know, cover us, cover the expenses of doing something along the lines of a digital campaign. So I think that's what your task is to figure out what a reasonable number is, and obviously you're going to have to make a whole bunch of assumptions.
Right.
Are we looking
Try to
at
make them reasonable.
like 30 days in advance
Pardon?
of 2 campaigns, 3 campaigns?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Like what?
Are we looking at 3 digital campaigns for 3 elections for next year, potentially?
Well, I would hope we only have 2 elections.
Well, I hope so too.
So,
but
no, I would not plan
budgeting
for an
just
August,
2?
No.
at least from my
Are
perspective.
we looking for 30 days in advance or 60 days? Because it will be, I know it'll be a monthly situation. Like, we'll have a 30-day digital campaign. That's a typical
I mean, I guess it would depend on the
request.
cost maybe, but
And the campaign. Because you can do it 7 days, which you can do for 30 days. And I would be open to hearing what the
Okay.
experts say. You might be able to get better results in a intense 7-day campaign than you could in a less intense 30-day campaign. I don't know the answer.
Prior to the expiration of the last day to register to vote for
Right.
primary or the general.
And when you
Okay.
do things at a deadline, you get accelerated behavior. If you do things way in advance, you get, well, I got plenty of time. So I don't know what the marketers would suggest. My guess is not a long campaign, but a blitz that says the deadline is coming, act now. It only takes 3 minutes. Click here. But, you know, that's my guess.
60 seems long to me. A week might be too short.
Right.
30 might be right, but yeah, I mean, we should get some more knowledgeable opinion about that.
We'll find the sweet spot that allows us time to process, but keeps it as close to the deadline as possible.
Yeah, and it's really ultimately, it's about your tolerance for the spend as well, because ultimately, we're gonna make the campaign fit the budget, if there is a budget.
Right.
Yes, but right now we're talking about what the budget should be.
To have a meaningful campaign.
So we're in danger of going around in a circle here.
So we will prepare options for the next meeting, and then we can talk about it with real data to make it a little more
Great,
substantial.
great,
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll do a
thanks. So,
On the budget, we're not done discussing the budget, are we?
no, we're not done discussing the budget. I think we've taken care of the VR drive part of it. The next part was statewide petitions, and then there's the other category.
And that was just for the purpose of drawing your attention to those line items, because that is a large amount of spending that we don't typically have. Usually we'll have a state petition or 2, but 8 is quite a big
I
stretch.
suspect what the county will say is, let's wait and see, and we'll get back to you if it turns out there are 8.
I would suspect the very same.
What is the 2025 total budget for the BOE?
A little over 7 million, but I do not remember the exact figure off the top of my head.
7.1 something.
And then I think planning, 8 is a lot. And I've seen those petitions, they're going to keep, most of those aren't whims. I think there's a whole bunch of them out there that are going to be filing. 8 is more than usual. If you got 8, if you got 5, that would have a dramatic budget impact. If you get 1, 2, but, so I think you're wise to account for those. I would also, at the risk of sounding like a broken record, I would suggest that our part-time pay level at $18.06 an hour, does that include a 2.5% increase?
Yes.
That would be with the 2.5% increase starting the beginning of the pay period that April 1st falls into. So that's not for the entire year, but we've accounted for that in the figures.
I think that number's still too low. I still advocate for a $20 an hour part-time wage. And, you know, we aren't just looking at a part-time wage, we're looking at to be able to recruit and retain returnable seasonal workers. We get some of those at the current rate, we would get more of them at a higher rate. So I just think our dollar amount there is too low. I don't know what the county's willing to give us, but our life is easier when we have enough and qualified and experienced workers, and a higher wage will get us more return workers, more experienced workers, and more capable workers, and which will help us with the election. So I'd throw 2 cents in to raise that part-time wage, at least for budgeted purposes.
I'm inclined to agree. I'm curious what your thoughts are, Cheryl, about that. In terms of, you know, the difficulty that we currently have recruiting, how much this would help. I mean, I think we all agree there is a labor market.
Yes. I would say that our current difficulty is not as much with the rate as it is availability of people that don't either have otherwise full-time employment or are at an age where they want to be working. I would agree that higher rate will always help, and I would be the first one to tell you that our seasonal staff is worth it. As far as giving an overall opinion, it isn't something I had considered prior to this. I know in the past, we typically go with the county, what the county's offering across the board, so it wasn't anything I had even considered prior to hearing this question.
So are you saying that the county has part-time workers and they have a standard rate? And
No, I'm sorry. I'm saying that in the past, when we do the 2.5%, we just attributed that to part-time staff as well, whatever the full-time
Well,
staff got.
I
And we've
thought
had
that-
times where we've made larger increases.
Right.
But I would not be opposed to going to a $20 an hour wage for our seasonal staff.
How impactful it is, and $20 an hour, 25.
And we'll never really know because we won't know what would have happened if we hadn't done that.
Exactly. So we're going to have to make a decision in the theoretical. And then the county's going to make their decision in the practical. But I just think we need to be on the high edge of part-time workers if we're going to attract. If Amazon's hiring everybody $20 an hour, we're in a competitive disadvantage.
Right. And our stronger disadvantage is that it is seasonal work. So even when you get someone for a cycle that does really well, really enjoys the job, even is okay with the pay rate, once we have that 3 or 4 month gap in between where we don't have anything we can bring them in for, we often lose them to other gainful employment. And that tends to be our largest issue when we're pulling from seasonal staff that's not already retired. They have a little more leeway because they have income coming in, so they can swing it a little easier.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're not really competing with Amazon.
Right.
Not that work, not the full-time.
One thing I will mention, though, just it was a question that Ray brought up, so it's probably worth at least keeping in the back of our minds is if the board does want to go that route and, let's say, bump it up to a flat rate 20, you know, we'd probably want to look at how that compares to the lowest level of our full-time staff then, because I think there's somewhere, it's like 25, 26 an hour, somewhere in that range. So just not sure what kind of delta you want between those two.
I'm going to say something that's going to blow your mind, and nobody's going to be readily able to agree with it. But the minute you offer a part-time or a full-time job, and they look at it and say, I'm okay with the part-time, you'll know when the pay increase of the full-time is not compelling enough in and of itself, you've probably hit the right number. Now, I can't prove that or disprove it. I just know that we're not there yet. Nobody's turning down, nobody who wants to be full-time is turning down because the pay differential is not high enough. But we have had people who've turned down supervisory positions, not only here, but in other places, where they turned down a supervisory position because the pay differential isn't worth the burden. You know, and but that's the same dynamic.
Well, the other thing is, the part-timers don't get all the benefits.
Right.
The benefits are great,
Right.
you know, working for
They don't
the-
get vacation and they don't get the health insurance.
Oh, yeah, retirement, blah, 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 so there's
Well,
a
they
huge-
do pay into retirement.
Yeah, they get the pension at an hourly rate.
Oh, do the
With the same
part-timers?
service credit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you could work here 20 hours a week for 30 years and get a full pension. I mean, you get a pension, I should say full, it's not fair to say. But they get the same, they'll get a full service credit for each year. All you have to do is make $12,000 a month.
No, not a month.
Not anymore.
Not 12,000 a month.
The 12, you need to make, what's the minimum a month?
I think it's like 12,000 for the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like 12
It's
or
12,000
13,000
per year, it's $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if you work 1,000, make $1,000 a month, you get a full credit for that month. And if you get 12 full credits, you get a full year, just like you get for your poultry board salary.
Well, I get an even,
Which is going up 5% though.
I get an even more paltry one for teaching at Akron U when I did and being on, you know, but it takes, my wife and I go out to dinner once a month on that, yeah.
So I think the question is, do we want to increase the part-time rate to, say, 20 an hour? What is it now? 8,
It is currently 1762,
1860?
and in April of next year, it will go to 1806.
Are you looking for a motion in that regard, or is that just a discussion? I mean, I'm for it. I think everybody's nodding there.
I mean, you're just putting it in the proposal.
Right,
It's not
yeah.
what you're getting.
Right.
But
So do it. Go for 20.
Put it in the
Yeah.
Okay,
what
so
Archie Bunker said.
we will
Best
bump
offer
that.
is the one that you make and you know can't be accepted. So when you turn to the part-time staff and said, hey, we tried to give you 20, they kind of said, no. What's it cost us?
Did you really want to put that on the record?
And just to note,
John, strike that from the record.
All right, any other questions about the budget? Either from board members or if you have things that you want us to talk about that we haven't already talked about.
I think I just had one other thing, which at the very bottom of page 1 is a carryover from last year where we actually added 2 new full staff in 2025. Is that a line item you want us to keep, or is that a line item you'd like us to strike out or remove?
So wait, are you asking whether we want to eliminate the 2 positions or whether we want to add 2 more?
The latter.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not looking to remove anybody, but whether you'd want to add an additional 2 again, like we did in 2025. Like I said,
That's
it's a
certainly
carryover line.
It's good that you raised that question.
Yeah.
hiring full-time is the best way for seasonal retention, right?
So what would these full-time positions be if they were to be added?
I don't know off the top of my head, because like I say, right now, that's just a carryover line item from last year's budget
Right.
request, so.
I don't think that's the kind of item you just automatically carry over. If you have a reason,
I know that last year wasn't the first time we had that line item as well. We sort of have been including it in our request, whether or not we actually created the positions, because it's foreseeable that we could use 2 more people.
Well, we had
Getting the
specific-
county in the habit of us asking.
Did they fund the positions last year?
I believe they did, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But we had a specific reason for it when we
Right.
were changing the structure of the positions and changing IT, we had a performance. So, I mean, here's my thought on that. If there is going to be a request for anything additional, Director,
There
Deputy
needs to be
Director,
a reason for it.
give us a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go back to them every year, just routinely asking for 2 more positions every year.
No, I would prefer not to as well. That's why I pointed out is this is a carryover from last year. Before we keep moving forward the budget until
Right.
November 18th, I'd like to make as many adjustments
No,
now
I
as
mean-
possible. So I don't see any reason to keep it in personally. That's why I wanted to point it out.
Pete, I mean, do you have in mind 2 positions that you think we need for next year?
Oh, not at present, no, but, and
well-
as we adapt to this place and see, especially after November, I think we'll have a much better idea if we do need more things to deal with the logistics of pre-election and election day, and it may become apparent that we need more people. But that's a discussion that can certainly happen at some other time, and we can revisit
Yeah,
it
I think
in
I
the
would,
future.
I think I would rather have it when we at least have a pretty good idea of what the need is.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's take that out. Anything else on the budget? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Other business is next.
I have one maybe suggestion / request, and it's not for now, but it would be for December. We used to get in our board packets the leave balances of the employees. I don't know that we need those pay to pay, but I would like at the end of the year, it would be helpful to get a report on all of the employees' leave balances, vacation, sick leave, and personal leave, just to make sure that we're staying, how close we're staying to the cap policy, but also, or to document that we have stayed. Because the worst thing that could happen is someone leave, they have more hours on the balance, and then we say, how did that happen? And we have a policy that we have to violate because we owe them vacation because we didn't enforce. So anyway, I'd like to see that. And then also, we have a nice new tardy report procedure, and I would like at the end of the year, and this could actually be in January, to see, because the policy went into effect January 1st of this year,
Which policy?
the tardiness.
Oh, tardiness.
We trained on it, then we implemented January. So I'd like to get some sort of annual report on, tardy report per employee, and any comparison to the prior year that we're able to make without, combing through records. If we could have I'd like to see if we have any sort of reaction after 1 year as to the impact of the tardy policy. Is it helped, is it hurt, or is it indifferent? And that can even be done in January when you close the books on the vacation leave. I think it's probably necessary to know in November or December if anybody's at that number so we can force them to take their leave after we certify the election.
So that would be a spreadsheet of all tardies for all staff for the entire year in January? that you're-
Sounds good.
Okay. Because anybody that would actually trigger the policy, you would see prior to that.
we would have already
But this will
seen,
be,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
I guess really what it is an analysis by you all is did the policy on tardiness assist in reducing tardiness? And,
I can tell you that right now.
yeah. And to
Yes.
have some quantified numbers on the record so that we can make a decision to maintain the policy.
Will do, thank you.
That's all I have.
Any other business to come before the board today?
Not that I have.
Before I adjourn the meeting, I just want to remind the board members that we need that their signatures are needed before you escape. But if there's no further business to come before the board today and no objection to adjournment, I declare the meeting adjourned.
All righty.